Hi, everybody. All right, I just want to preface this video by saying right out of the gate, this one will require a little more effort than the other ones that we have done. All right, it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's really going to synthesize the things that we talked about this week. Now, with that said, because we have the weekend, here's what I suggest to you. If you have a lot of other things to do for your other classes, pause the video right here, go do those things, and do this later in the week. That'll also give you the opportunity of having other students have done this project and asked questions in the Discord channel so that they were answered. And anything that you might have asked will already be there, so you don't have to waste as much time looking for answers. But if you're good to go and you're ready to challenge yourself, then let's get right on to it. All right, so today in part two of the Better Gradebook class, we're actually going to define our gradebook class, and we'll add actually a little something to the student.java file. You thought you got off the hook with that one. Uh, and then Monday, after this weekend, we'll actually start implementing it and doing cool things with it. All right, so without further ado, let's go right to there. All right, so we did this yesterday where we made these students using our student.java, and then we called them and got this in our console, information on the students that we created. All right. Now that we have students, we can use them in our gradebook class. All right, so let's actually define a gradebook class. All right, now the first thing that we're going to want to do is just like in student.java, we're going to want to import java.util.arrays. All right, reason being is, well, we are going to have arrays in this just like we did in the other um, in the student class, and we're going to want to do a copy of them that doesn't necessarily give just the same array, but two different ones. All right, so we'll just put that in there. We'll start off by defining our member variables. Just like our last gradebook class, we're going to have a label on these. We'll call it private string label. And this time, instead of a array of grades, we're going to have an array of students. All right, let's do the easy part. Default constructor. For this, we're just going to call it public gradebook. Well, for default, I'll make my label SEP3. Call yours whatever you'd like. And students, as a default, will be an array of new students. Now, unlike when we were making a double array in student.java, these don't necessarily all fill out with the default student. You actually have to initialize them. These are actually going to be null objects. So 10 null objects and that we can't actually do anything with. So what we're going to do here is just make a quick loop for int I equals 0, I is less than students. Nope. Oh, sorry. This should be a lowercase. Sorry, that should have no s there, and this should be the array students dot length I plus plus. All we're going to do is say for this loops through our array. We're going to say for each index in the students array, set that equal to a new student. So these are going to be our John Doe objects because we're just using the default constructor here. All right. So that's going to be what I write for the default constructor. Let's get a parameterized constructor up in here. All right. And this is going to say public Gradebook, just like the last one, but this will take two parameters. String L, this is an L and not a 1. You thought you wouldn't have to hear me say that anymore now that we're remote learning, but nope, that is an L, not a 1. And the student array S. I'm going to just put a space here for my comfort. It's not actually necessary. It's what I like. All right. Here we're going to set the label equal to our parameter L. And the students array, we're going to set to arrays dot copy of S. And how many elements do we want to copy? Well, all of them. So we'll say S dot length. All right, so far, so good, hopefully. Now that we have these constructors, let's write our accessors. All right, that'll be public string get label. We're simply going to return the label that we have here. Pretty easy. And then the not so easy ones. Public student array get students. All right. So this one will say return arrays dot copy of, well, we have our students array, and how many of the students do we want to copy? Well, all of them. So we'll say students dot length. Okay, and now for the annoying one. We'll say public student without the array, and we'll call it get student. All right, singular. This one up here is multiple, so that's why we're getting the array. This one here is singular. We just want a single one. And because we want a single one, we need to specify an integer index. All right. Now this one we need to declare that this throws a index out of bounds exception because the user can give us a bad index. And what we want to say is, well, if the index that they give us is greater than or equal to 0, and the index is less than students.length, that means that they've given us something that's in a good range, that's within the range of indices that we have for our students array. So what we can say is, all right, return students at index. So that'll get whatever student that they wanted. This is actually not beautiful. We're going to have to talk about this, but it will do a hacky job of it. All right. Then we could say else throw new index out of bounds exception. And this one could say invalid index in get student int. Okay. So, and this is part of what makes this video longer. This is not great. All right, because students, the student class that we made, produces student objects, which, like arrays, don't copy like primitive types. All right, if you say return students index, if this, if this was an array of doubles, it would just make a copy of the element in the array and let it play with that copy. Whatever the user does to that copy won't affect what's in the array, and everything's like, good. Doesn't happen the same way with objects, because with objects, when you return an object in an array of objects, what you're not taking this object and copying it into a new location for the user to play with. What you're doing is you're saying, hey, user, the object you want to play with is over there. Go get it. All right. And we don't want that because we want our user to only be able to access the member variables of our objects through our member methods, the ones that we specifically define, like getStudent and eventually setStudent. So we're going to have to do something here. All right. And before we actually do that thing, let me show you exactly the problem we're going to encounter if we don't do it. Let's go to main.java. I'm just going to get rid of this. You don't have to, but I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to create a new gradebook that we'll call G using the default constructor. I'm also going to create a new student object. I'll call it S3 in case you guys didn't delete the thing that I deleted. And instead of setting it to a new student, I'm going to set it to g.get student 0. All right. Hopefully Mr. Sands didn't make any mistakes, and this will run and show nothing in the console. Beautiful. All right. So what we're saying is, hey, this student S3, this student S3, just copy it from the 0th student in our gradebook. All right. Now, right now, or rather, before I even do that, let me just do g.getStudent0.display and throw a little heading on that. Call it before. All right. So in our before section, you're going to see that our student initially is this John Doe student with all hundreds. Now we say, hey, we just want a copy of that to play with. We don't necessarily want to change our gradebook. We just want a copy of that student to play with over here. And so the user's playing with that element. He's saying s3 dot set grade 0. Let's set that to a 50. You know, he's just saying, maybe the 0th grade in that student's array is a 50. All right. Then let's do the same thing again that we did here. Let me copy these 2 lines. Let's change this to after. And if you see in the after effect, whatever that user did to S3 actually affected our gradebook too. We don't want this. We don't want them to be able to change that student's grade unless they're specifically using our member methods. All right, so what can we do? Well, luckily, we are the person creating these classes. We'll just keep that there for now, and you see the difference. Well, what we need to do is return a new student object, one that is a copy of the student at this index. All right. So in order to do that, we actually need to create a third constructor in our student class. And this is a third type of constructor, one that we haven't talked about yet, but which is incredibly simple. And this is called a copy constructor. And this is the one thing that you definitely need to put in student.java. I wasn't going to give you everything for free, I know. You thought you were off the hook there. So just like the rest of the constructors, you're going to say public student. And now this will take a parameter, but a copy constructor, its parameter is always the object that you are defining the class for. So, for example, public student will take a student parameter that we'll just call other, because it's the other student that we're trying to copy. All right, and copy constructors generally look the same, where you say, all right, the first name of this new student is going to be equal to the other student's first name. The last name of our copied student is going to be the other student's last name, and the grades of our new student is going to be equal to, well, almost got you there, not just other dot grades, but array dot copy of other dot grades. And how many elements do we want? Other dot grades dot length. All right, so we have this copy constructor now, meaning we can now create copies of student objects, something that we weren't able to do before. Now if I go to gradebook.java again, instead of just returning students at that index, I could say return new students and then pass students at that index as a parameter. Now you'll see uh, this should still be 100 when we rerun it now. That should not have been changed. Oh, what did I do? Sorry, in student I called it array, and yes, I called it array.copyOf. It should have been arrays. My mistake. Make sure that that says arrays. Okay, cool. And now you see that before and after are the same. And that's because when we're saying student S3 is equal to g.getStudent, we're just giving them a copy of that student. They're not actually messing with the one in our gradebook, which is what we wanted. That's what we wanted here. All right, that way everything is nice and closed off, and they can only access things specifically through our methods. All right. You know, we got through the accessors. I'll leave it as a challenge to you guys. Try the mutators. Try writing the mutators the best you think you could do them. And what I'll do is if you post in the Discord at Mr. Sands, hey, I did the challenge. I wrote the mutators. Can you check them out? If you do that at any time over the weekend, I'll take a look at them. But we'll cover the rest of this in part 3. So, yeah, great work this week, guys. I've been very proud of you all for doing such an amazing job transitioning to this remote learning. Before we leave, I have to do my usual gambit. Please make sure you do the attendance. I so few of you do it between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And you do it much later. Honestly, I'd be happy if you just did the attendance form and not the work, and then did the work after that time, because I need to turn them in at 3 o'clock to my administrator, and it's giving them bad data because I know a lot of you are still doing the work. So just do your best to get that attendance form done on time. I'll try to remember you in the I'll try to remind you in the Discord. So also please join the Discord channel if you haven't already. Um, and yeah, have a great weekend, guys. You deserve it. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.